Who remembers this song? I hope that you can hear this song with me. This song was released, by the way, 30 years ago, and it was at a really important and tumultuous time in our country's history. President Nelson Mandela was being released from Victor Verster prison, and you remember that iconic picture of him coming out of the gates with Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela at his side, their fists punching the air. It was a time of such change for us in our country back then. And I think that we are at a time of change again. And I'll talk more about that later on in my talk to you. I'm hoping that we have a conversation, and I'm not going to do a presentation to everyone who's listening, because I know that it's very hard to keep up when somebody is, you know, reading something, or it feels like people are not connecting with you. And that's something I've had to do for at least 20 or more years in my career, really connect with people. Therona, you're very naughty. You mentioned a G&T and lemons. Are you one of the lucky ones that managed to stock up just before the new ban was instituted? Because I think a lot of people will be feeling quite thirsty now at the thought of having a gin and tonic with a slice of lemon. I just want to let you know that I've got my, my coffee in my hand, and I'm barefoot. It's the very first keynote that I'm delivering where I have a coffee and I'm barefoot to an audience. So I know that you'll forgive me, or at least you can imagine what it looks like. Just beneath this table. But I think what we should also do, Therona, maybe at some point, is to do the full picture challenge. I know there are 140 people that are listening to this program right now and taking part in this webinar. And I wonder if they've just prepped from the waist up, and whether they've got their pajama pants and their awful Crocs underneath. So I'm so grateful to be with all of you today. It is such a special privilege and an honor. I was really blown away when Therona and Ishara asked me to join you. Ishara, by the way, and I were at high school together. I was the head girl, she was the deputy head girl, and there are a lot of stories that she can tell, but I've paid her handsomely so that she doesn't do that. I just want to confess at the very beginning how nervous I feel talking to all of you. I mean, you always feel like it doesn't matter how many years it's been since you finished school, that your teachers are constantly grading you. They're evaluating your performance. What are they thinking? And I'm wondering, what are you all saying right now? Do I sound like an idiot? You know, what mark would you give me if you had to grade my keynote this morning? And here is why. As Ishara will tell you, I was one of those students, was probably quite endearing, but also very irritating, because I always wanted to impress my teachers. I always wanted that recognition. And can you believe it, that I still feel like that today, this morning with you? It's really something. And Therona, when you introduced me so warmly and talked about, even just in our phone calls, preparing for this talk, about how much you appreciate the work that I've been able to do over these last few years. It's such an affirmation, and it's such an important thing to hear from people, because like you, the work that we do might not always be followed with, you know, recognition or somebody phoning you and saying thank you. It's just something we do, and we hope for the best in that process. So hearing you say that and inviting me to be on your platform is such a really special and powerful thing for me today. Educators have been such an important, some would say unavoidable, part of all of our lives, and all human beings, no matter which society you come from, have teachers. Many of those teachers are amazing individuals. I had the good fortune to be surrounded by people who from primary school saw something special in me, and they told me so. And they planted inside of me these seeds of hope and ambition. And those seeds were watered by other educators along the way, who affirmed me and who made me feel like nothing was impossible. Like my history teacher at Lineria Secondary School, Mr. Vahed, or my Afrikaans teacher, Miss Mudley. I'm going to scroll down. Let's see if I can just show you some of their pictures. Okay, that's for later, but this is me at school, and I have a picture just like this of me and Ishara, but I saved her the embarrassment. I thought, okay, that horrible hairstyle, I'm going to take on the chin just by myself. So that's me standing outside Lineria High School. That is the front of the school, and these are the teachers that made such an impact in my life. Mr. Bayer that I was talking about, Ms. Mudley, Mr. Bachin, and others. And it is these teachers that pointed me in directions above the squash confines of my growing up years. I mean, I grew up in a rented, very small garage in this affluent suburb called Reservoir Hills, which a lot of you will know. Maybe some of you even live there. I grew up also in a semi-detached house in Solon Place in Unit 13 in Phoenix. Again, some of you may know the area. You may even live there. This is the school and area which is in the community. And then I want to go back to this picture before I get to back to Jeremy and myself. Let me see if I can go right the way back to the top. This picture. I wonder if you can still see my screen. Let me see if I can pick up the screen sharing again. All right, there we are. I'm back on. This picture of me as a 9-year-old is an incredibly important and special picture. I just want to put it onto the full screen so that you can see it. Got to smile through the challenges, haven't we? That's what I learned from live television. But as I looked into the eyes of this child who reminds me so much of my youngest child who is 13 now, that was the old Vanessa. And if anyone grew up with me, if you see my child now, you'll see how similar we look. But I look at this picture of myself and I wonder, I try to remember what this girl in the picture used to think. Her 9-year-old existence was about mother and father, brothers, sister. We used to do a lot of going to the beach with our big biryani pots. I think a lot of you will remember that. And apartheid was our frame. And we kept our smiles in place in a society that was so messed up with racial segregation. And all our parents wanted to do was to fly beneath the radar. You've got to keep quiet. You've got to get educated and you've got to get a job. It would be lovely if you killed it at maths and science and went to study medicine. But even a job in a bank would be an absolute dream. And I know that that child that stares back at me from that picture and the picture you're looking at right now could never have foreseen this life that I've come to know and to have, of traveling to foreign lands, of sitting down to conversations with dignitaries and famous people, of commiserating with a mother who's lost everything after a shack fire, of being in just about every reach in our society, in South Africa, in Africa, around the globe, being able to own my own house and drive my own car, of having children, of being an author of books. And so I'm just going to quickly see, this is the latest one. Therona's got copies for 2 lucky people. And this book was just off the press earlier last week. I mean, I could never have imagined that I'd be writing books, and I still don't know what the journey holds next. But I just know that without people like each of you who are in the room, and Richelle tells me there's at least 140 people who are gathered around this virtual fire this morning, I really want to let you know that without people like you, the curtains would have been drawn over the windows of possibility of what could have been in my life. And I know that there are many children, and I mean, I really feel quite emotional at this point because I know the background that I came from. I know about the domestic violence. I know about the drugs. I know about just the general violence and the gangs in the community in which we lived. There are many paths and routes that my life could have taken, but I had these teachers who were so determined to show us another reality than the one we were faced with, the one that we were breathing every single day. And you make up that special group of people. When I went back to Lanieri in 2016 while doing my election coverage, I reconnected with these old teachers. And I found them still so full of energy, so full of belief in the students at the school. And this was 30 years later, 30 years on, and they'd not lost their love for teaching. I found them still focused on taking children from all backgrounds and helping them see the kinds of possibilities that they made me see. Vanessa Rappetti from Unit 13 in Phoenix. And again, I feel truly emotional just thinking about it. I went to political camps. I took part in plays. I sang my heart out at concerts. I read books like a starving person. I improved my vocabulary. I kept learning and seeking more and more. And there they were, ever in the background. And so now when I take center stage on a television program with people like Jeremy Maggs, whom a lot of you know, or when I host a television program, as I said, moderate a high-level conversation in South Africa, around the world, talk to presidents. It is my teachers who never get named and thanked, but who, like my parents, open the way for me. It is they, like you, who are the silent heroes who really alter our path and change us forever. There's a lot that's changing in the world. COVID-19 has slapped us across the face. Actually, I would say that it has punched us in the face, and we are dazed and confused. Some of us are in mourning for the world that was and the world that will be no more, because it is a time of profound change. Along with climate change, we are witnessing seismic behavioral change. Stand apart, wear a mask, don't mix with people, stay away from your family. I mean, I can't tell you how much I miss my mother's beans and trotters. I can't see her. She's in KZN in Pietermaritzburg, and I can't go visit her. There are significant psychological and health impacts. We are bewildered by the silence that has descended on the world. Where are the parties? Where are the boot parties? Okay, I'm not promoting cane and pine, but I'm just saying, it's what I grew up with. Where are the communal gatherings? Can we really get sick and die in bigger numbers than flu if we contact these radioactive like bacteria particles? We're in a time of such grief, and we were not given any time to prepare. Like all those Hollywood blockbuster movies that we watched, it was just the stuff of movies. That something big was going to happen with the world. We didn't pay attention because it was a movie, not real life after all. But we are learning just how much life can mimic art. The headlines are worrisome for you teachers and other frontline workers. Here are a couple of headlines just from the last few days. South Africa has the 5th highest total COVID-19 infections in the world, with more than 400,000. Just this week alone, there was debate about government's decision to reopen schools. The pandemic dominated discussions in Parliament. The Department of Basic Education's adjusted budget was a big topic of discussion. You're all waiting for Cabinet's decision on the matter. Opposition parties are slamming the Basic Education Department's decision to go back to school without the basic infrastructure in place to stop the spread of COVID-19. First it's back to school, then it's not. Then there are tensions and furious discussions between yourselves and unions, politicians. Parents are worried, children are worried. Will my children be at risk? Should they go back to school? What about the education year? And then the sinister headlines, along with deaths amongst healthcare workers. Just yesterday, this headline, 12 teachers in Gauteng dying of COVID-19. This was revealed by the health MEC here in Gauteng. It's really enough to just make you feel so sick. From the uncertainty, to the risks involved, to the loss of education, and for the losses to education. So let's come back to the fire of my teachers here at Linearia High School and the 30 years since we parted ways. When I last reached out to them, they were doing what they do best, motivating learners, handing out awards, and pushing on with the largely thankless task of teaching. And I haven't spoken to them since this pandemic began. And I can't really guess where their hearts and minds are right now. But if they are anything like what I remember, I know that they will be fighting for ways in which their craft and their profession can stay on top of this. They would be fighting for the well-being and prospects of those students, many of whom come from broken homes and who are desperate to write a better story than their own parents did. It is hard. It is the hardest thing to be in your position right now. What about you? What about your families? How do you make the sacrifice? And how do you keep the faith when sometimes it seems like you're keeping that faith alone? And I have no easy answers. But what I will say is, like before, when you were required to lead by teaching, lead by staying focused on a future in the face of ungrateful students or diminished resources, or even a political system that kept everyone so behind. I invite you to lead by remembering your own oath of office to yourself and to those under your tutelage that you will find a way. I want to close by reflecting on this, and maybe there's time for a little bit of conversation and questions if you have any. I was reading some profound pieces at the start of the pandemic. Now, if anyone knows me, my nature is never to give up. It's almost to be angrily optimistic, aggressively optimistic, and to find a way to make stuff happen. I was on television and radio last year. I just won an award for my radio show. It was the best radio show in the country according to the Liberty Radio Awards. Everything is going really well. I have a really great television program. And my soul wasn't in it. And I decided to leave and really launch my own business. And because we're based in South Africa and globally, the impact of COVID hit me a lot earlier than it hit our country, because I had clients in foreign countries, Singapore, across the continent, and so on. And those meetings began to dry up. So financially, we were taking a hit in the business from around November, and I was totally beside myself. And then South Africa happened and the lockdown happened, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? And I just remembered Phoenix. I remembered those aunties who could make the tin fish biryani stretch for like 20 people out of one can. I would remember my mother sharing potatoes and sugar with the neighbors, and how people come together and just make stuff happen, and we survive. And I really plugged into that power source. And we tried entirely different things. We took our business completely online. Clients started to come. There are green shoots. I mean, we are inundated with work. We don't know what to do with that work. And we're among the lucky ones, because we're very, very aware of so many people whose lives are changed forever, who are losing their jobs. But the point I'm trying to make is that there is a fire that was started many years ago in the communities in which I grew up, the poorer communities, teachers like this, who made that fire bigger, that allowed me to be where I am in this position today, to say, never give up and never say die. And just two final analogies I want to make. Our own education was threatened by the apartheid forces in the 80s, and our teachers did their best to focus on the task of bringing us out of that darkness and keep us focused on a light that may come in the future someday. Our education is being threatened by a different darkness right now, this pandemic, and the uncertainty of what is going to happen. I just want to say, there's an old adage in political science: verification, replication, prophecy. Something happens, you verify it happens, it means it's the likelihood of something like that happening again is highly possible. We went through a really terrible system. We suffered a lot of injustices. We were resilient and we pushed on and we came through. And that is entirely possible in this context in 2020. So however you're feeling this morning, putting on a smile just so that we can have this meeting this morning, but inside feeling like, what the hell is going on? How will I manage? What am I going to tell my children? I just want you to remember that we have been here before in a different form, fighting against a different enemy. But we triumphed and we succeeded. And it is my supreme belief that we will continue to do that today. And again, if I haven't said it enough and reinforced it enough, I want to thank you. Thank you for the sacred and holy task that you are doing in holding the line, in guiding the children of this country to the creation of a future even better than what we've experienced in our country over the last 30 years. Thank you for letting me have the microphone, and I'm going to hand it back to Therona.
Great, thank you, Iman. Just to let our audience know that we will be putting you in the hot seat, Iman. I think you're used to that. I think you probably thrive on that. So let's just ask our participants to raise their hands if they have any questions to put to you, or if they have any comments. We already know what your favorite meal is. So, and I kind of guess what your favorite drink might be. So to our audience and our participants, if there's any questions that you want to ask Iman, I think we're not going to censor them, Iman. You're open to them. You've shown your genuineness. So you're not going to shy away from any questions. You've seen her with Jeremy as a tag team. And maybe you want to ask a question about that, or you may want to ask about one of those very high-profile interviews she may have had with your favorite politician. Now's your chance. I don't think we're going to get another opportunity, and her memory might fade as well over time. So participants, take this opportunity to raise your hand using your facility to raise your hand, or you may want to put a comment in the Q&A. Iman is desperate to hear from you. We wanted this to be as interactive as possible. So let's fire away. Leanne, would you give us the questions, if any?
Okay. I've got two hands that are currently raised. I'm first going to ask Rosalind Dixon to pose her question to Iman. Rosalind?
Hello.
You may speak.
Good morning, Imam.
Hi, Ros. Are you going to show us your picture, darling?
No, I've got a duck on my head. No, and plus I made a mistake. I took my PC to the bathroom and I thought, oh my goodness, this is not good. Anyway, Imam, I don't have a question for you, though. I just wanted to say thank you so, so much for your words of encouragement. I really appreciate it, and it certainly lifted my spirits this morning. Thank you so, so much.
Rosalind, that was the intention, and I'm so glad it reached your heart. I'm not going to ask the investigative journalist wants to know why is the PC in the bathroom, but I'm not going there. Thank you so much, Rose.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
We've got a second hand raised by Mtunzi Mbawana. Mtunzi, you may speak, and then I will go to Q&A and read out Q&A questions.
Thank you very much, Imam. I'm so touched to hear someone speaking from the heart. As a teacher, and also your reflection pause when you look back, it touched me that really adversity is a university. What makes people great, it's not easy way, but it's always moving from somewhere, but having that spark from the teachers was so delightful to hear that teachers are always people that don't get credit, but you gave credit where it is due. Thank you very much. I've seen your emotion and how you feel about where you come from. But what matters most is where you are today. You are a great inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Marilyn, Jordan, I acknowledge your hand. I'm first going to ask a question from the Q&A question. And this comes from Cole van der Merwe. What was your favorite subject at school?
That's easy, and I'll start by saying what my most horrible subject was. It was maths, but my favorite subject my favorite subjects were English and history. Absolutely loved the topics. Although I will issue a challenge to all educators around history. We need a rewriting of our entire curriculum to reflect the true uncolonial history of our country. So that's just an enduring challenge to all of you. Long answer to a short question, sorry.
Okay, Marilyn, Jordan, I'm going to give you the opportunity to now ask Iman a question live.
Good morning, Imam. Lovely to hear from you, long-time fan. Swirl coast on and all. I just wanted to find out from you, what advice would you have to the class of 2020 who are struggling under these COVID-19 conditions? And what are your views on the closure of schools and what has been happening within South Africa now with regards to education? And secondly, as a side comment, should we not win the autograph copy of the book, how do we go about getting an autograph copy of the book? Thank you.
Hey, Marilyn, you must now create a problem.
Always, Perona knows me.
Okay, let's start with the easy stuff, and that is the books. They will be available at Exclusive Books. My first book, we had the pleasure of being able to launch face-to-face. I was there to autograph them. But I'm very happy if, I mean, I don't know how we do this actually, practically. To sign one. I'm just going to pray for you to win, Marilyn.
That's a good idea. I'll have to bribe Ishara.
No, she's very bright. No, she's not bribable. On more serious topics around my views on the country.
Yes.
I think that anyone who speaks with certainty about what is happening politically and medically, locally and globally right now, is taking a risk at doing so. Because we're facing a story that is evolving, and this is a moving target. I have my own doubts about the science. I have my own doubts about a number of things that are happening behind the scenes. However, when it comes to questions around how soon will we return to normal, what's going to happen next, the truth is nobody knows the answer. And that's why I'd invite you, as I was talking and sharing with you, is to tap into the values that you already have. you know, we talk a lot about Ubuntu, and it's become a word that we just, you know, it's become just a word that's not recognized for its full impact. We have to care about the people around us. We have to first self-care and make sure that we take care of ourselves. It's like the oxygen mask in an aeroplane. Put it on first before you try and help someone else. And then help the people around you. Show care. You know, if you're prone to tempers and being agitated in public spaces, dial that back in. Lend a hand where you can. Those are the kinds of values that are enduring. It doesn't matter what the social situation is. We can all do good and be better than how we have normally been. So that's just, I mean, it's neither here nor the answer, but I think it might resonate for you in a time of uncertainty. And when it comes to kids of this class, they really need people like yourselves, and they need the grown-ups, so to speak, to really exhibit strong, undeniable leadership, so that they have, it's like when parents divorce and kids are not sure whose house they're going to, what's going to happen to the parents. It's up to the parents to show leadership, to provide routine and stability for those children. There's a deep psychological impact on the class of 2020. They've never been in this situation before, and what's worse, the adults that they're around have also never been in this situation before. The only thing we can do is play open cards with them, tell them the truth, and keep them focused on the importance of being focused on their studies. I mean, my nephew's at varsity, third year med school, and they've managed to continue with their classes, and he even graduated from his BSc degree in this crazy context. So it is possible. Do not be distracted by all the things that are happening around you. Focus on the basic and the simple. Focus on one goal at a time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I talk a lot, you know, I'm so sorry.
Not a problem. Anand Gandhan has a question he would like to ask you. Anand, could you ask the question, please?
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. Firstly, my congratulations to you, Imam. You have given us a timeless delivery, really thought-provoking, because I come from a very similar background that you had articulated first. And unlike me right now, you are too blessed to be stressed. And as for my comment, I think Madeline alluded to it already, because it was going to be, if you were standing in front of a matriculant just prior to them writing the NSC examination, whenever that is going to be, what would you say to that one child in a very short brief? Thank you, Imam.
Way to put me again on the spot, because I think when you're talking to a matric class in this context, you have to think about it and be really sensitive and sensible at the same time. But for a quick answer, I would just say, you know, tap into that kind of resilience inside of yourself, the preparation that precedes lockdown. I mean, lockdown is over the last 3 months, but your whole life you've been preparing for this exam, so you've got it. Focus on that. Focus on what you have and not what the context necessarily is right now.
Thank you very much.
We have a number of questions and comments that have come through our Q&A and chat panels. So I'm just going to read them out. Stephanie Peterson says, thank you very much for the inspirational message and clearly reminding us all that we are and will always be silently appreciated, yet still appreciated. Reshma Maharaj, very refreshing to listen to gorgeous, bubbly female guests at our conference. Charlene Andrew, Iman and Ishara, I am ex-Lenaria 2, class of 94. Thank you, Iman, for the inspirational talk and for being so real. Liesl Hastings, thank you. We all come from different life experiences, yet at some stage share common emotions. Those eyes of the 9-year-old with pain are very different now. God has definitely worked in your life and guided you. Our reminder of where our strength lies. Rosalind shares, when I reflect on my 9-year-old self, I see hunger, hurt, disappointment, sadness, chaos, emotionality. Wow, we as citizens share a sameness, if that's even a word. We hurt and we heal. Ultimately, the choice is ours. Velashni Vandiya, Iman, thank you for a most inspirational talk. Just checking if you're available at some point to come to school to give a motivational talk to educators. and governing bodies. Resham Jagat, thank you, Iman, for the inspiration that you have shared this morning, a little light in these dark times.